Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:30. I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order. For April 13th, 2024. We have a large gallery today. Welcome to all of you and welcome to those who are watching on our Zoom platform. I will begin today's meeting by respectfully acknowledging that the municipality of Jasper is located on Treaty 6 and 8 territories, as well as the Jasper House Métis District. This land is the traditional territory, meeting ground, gathering place, traveling route, and home for the Danza, Anishawak, Winawak, Anishawachi, Niha, Nihiawak, Anishinaabe, Secwepemc, Stoney Nakoda, Mountain Métis, and Métis. I will also acknowledge that we are in the midst of the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival. It is National Volunteer Week, and it is also National Tourism Week, all of which matter in our community with its economic base in tourism and supported extensively by volunteers in our community. With all those acknowledgements, I will turn to the agenda. Councillors, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? I will volunteer that if somebody else would make the motion, I have some proposed additions. Firstly, I believe that there are people in the gallery who would wish to present as a delegation that are not on the list, but I'm happy to add to the delegation. I see Paulette, Blanchette-Dubé and Matricia, Bauer Brown, both in the audience. So I would be happy to propose that another councillor make a motion that we add as a delegation those individuals as agenda item 5.3. I think they wish to address us regarding missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So we'd be happy to hear that if council approves. I would also like to add one quick item of new business, agenda item 6.4. The topic is the traffic safety bylaw number 247. I just want to make a very brief reference and probably with the consent of council refer that matter to the next committee of the whole meeting. I could raise it at this time. And finally, I am advised that there is a request for an in-camera session, and I would ask that that be added as agenda item 10, and we renumber adjournment to agenda item 11. So that is 3 additions that I have proposed. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Councillor DeMore.
Thank you. Just for clarity, do we have to say what our closed session is regarding? As far as the topic goes.
It is a request by administration. Is there a general topic? I presume you can reference the
Yes, your
voice legislation and
labor relations.
labor relations.
Okay. So if I may, under that same agenda item number 10, if I could add discussion on land. Thank you.
Councillor Hall, did I see an attempted hand raise? Oh. All right. I have a motion from Councillor Hall that we amend today's agenda with the addition of item 5.3, a delegation regarding missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. 6.4, traffic safety bylaw. And adding a new number 10, and in camera dealing with 2 items, labor relations and land, and renumbering item currently 10, adjournment to item 11. That is the motion for the amendments. Any debates? All those in favor? There are none opposed, that's carried, and might I then have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting as amended? Councillor Demota, thank you. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And we now have an agenda. It begins with now agenda item 3, approval of minutes. We have before us the legislative committee meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing nothing, may I have a motion, please, that council approve the minutes of the April 2nd, 2024 legislative committee meeting as presented? Councillor Hall, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed, that is carried. We also have before us the regular meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Deputy Mayor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll refer to item, the motion number 156/24. It's just very insignificant change, but what it is that we added motions, or we added items to the agenda. And in the previous motion, we added community transit survey. And then in the following approval of the agenda, it became the community transit update. And we didn't talk about an update, we talked about the survey. So just for clarity, it's just a minor grammatical one-word error, but the two things are very different. So I'd like to have that the minutes adjusted for the motion number 156/24 that we had talked about the community transit survey.
Thank you for that. So that suggestion is to correct the minutes by changing update to survey. Thank you for that. Any other corrections to be made with respect to the regular meeting minutes of April 2nd? Might I have a motion then that council approve the minutes of the ones?
No, that's fine. It wasn't any corrections. I just, Councillor Wilson submitted a really good report on his visit to the National Housing Conference, and for anybody that's interested in stuff like that, it was good timing, especially with upcoming projects in our community. I think it's something worth reading. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have a motion then that council approve the minutes of the April 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting as amended. Deputy Mayor Melnick, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And finally, we have before us the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of April 9th. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing no hands, may I have a motion, please, that council approve the minutes of the April 9th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting as presented. Deputy Mayor Melnick, thank you for that. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. On to agenda item 4, correspondence. We have received a letter from Minister Nixon, Minister of Seniors and Community Social Services. Not included in the agenda is the letter which I sent at the direction of council. So it's a bit out of context. It's hard to see just exactly what he was responding to, and we could maybe correct that at a later date by adding the letter. But it is there for us. I would suggest that given that the minister has indicated that there may be a new calculation of the threshold amount by the end of this month, maybe we defer this until into May and see what the changes are, if any. And in the meantime, we can compare the response to the request and see if we have other questions or comments for Minister Nixon. Is there anything else with respect to that piece of correspondence? All right, seeing nothing, we get to move on to the real part of the agenda, which brought many of you here today, I'm sure. Delegations, and agenda item 5.1 is Mayor's Recognition Awards. And in fact, we have recipients of those awards. And I will say at the outset that although they are called the Mayor's Recognition Awards, they are in fact selected by council. And so these awards, the nominations come forward are reviewed by all of council. And these particular nominees have been given the distinction of having the nominations approved by council, and we are now in a position to publicly acknowledge during this volunteer week members of our community who volunteer in various ways. I'm going to present these in the way that they were handed to me, which I assure you has no particular significance. Read nothing into it, but one has to come first and one will come second, but they are both first in the hearts of the community. And so I will begin with acknowledging that we received a number of nominations with respect to this individual who has contributed significantly to community well-being. She is to receive the Mayor's Recognition Award for Distinguished Voluntary Service, and that is in acknowledgement of her generous volunteer work and including her organization of the free Sunday live music in the park concert series, which was held in Commemoration Park on Sundays during the summer. But included in her efforts have been visits over the years to share music with Jasper residents of all ages, from daycares to seniors living facilities. Her nominator wrote, "Marie is the epitome of passion. Her love of skiing and music are infectious. Marie organized the free community concerts in Commemoration Park last summer, bringing together the neighbors of Jasper to showcase our local talent. These events revive such a sense of belonging, diversity, and inclusion by creating a welcoming and supportive demonstration of community gathering." And council could not agree more and joins with me in recognizing Marie-Pierre Filippo Bergeron to receive the Mayor's Recognition Award for Distinguished Voluntary Service. And Marie is out there somewhere.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You guys come over to the center. Come over to the center.
Come to center. Try that again. We're gonna stand right here. Okay, all right, all right.
Thank you so much.
Your community. Thank you.
Helen's going as fast as she can. She's going as fast as she can. And she's doing great.
I say rock star. There are only 74 of these.
Oh, you look great. Yay. Looks awesome. Yay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. Yes, they put me home. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that.
That was a musical award, so that was kind of like a rehearsal.
Nobody will hear you on the recording. You want?
Ignore the owl pause.
If only.
The second award that we have today is the Mayor's Recognition Award for Athletics. And this is to acknowledge her years of service and her ongoing achievements with the Jasper Gymnastics Club. This individual, and she knows who she is, but I'll pretend that it's a big secret. She's been attending the Jasper Gymnastics Club since she was an infant. She's close to being 18 years old now, June of this year, I think. And in fact, one of her nominators wrote, "She has worked tirelessly for many years to help keep the Jasper Gymnastics Club running. When she was a young girl, training as an athlete with the club, she spent many hours volunteering with the younger gymnasts and working with her family, setting up, tearing down, and cleaning equipment. Whatever had to be done, she was able to do it. She furthered her training and now coaches and mentors gymnastics from as young as 3 all the way up to the competitive athletes. She does all of this with quiet determination and a smile on her face." Another nominator wrote, "The reason for my nomination is she has been an ambassador for Jasper at competitions and courses, demonstrates perseverance through difficult times, a determination to push herself and grow, and the generosity to share her talent with the youth of Jasper through coaching and looking to the future. She has given so much to this community for her age, and I think recognition is certainly deserved." Well, council certainly agreed that recognition is deserved, and we are so happy to award the Mayor's Recognition Award for Athletics to Kiara Davis.
It's gonna do it. There we go. That's.
You can go.
She's got family watching online too.
We'll wait till Pam says.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Well done. For 18 years old, girl. Well done.
Yeah. Excellent.
Again, thank you and congratulations to both of our award recipients. And again, so happy to acknowledge this during Volunteer Week, and so appreciative of all of the volunteers in our community who keep this place running. We are a small community in need of lots of volunteers, and I know that it can become overwhelming. But you set such a fine example for others. You will spur others to volunteer, I'm sure. Thank you for your continued efforts, and thanks to all volunteers who contribute to our community. With that, we turn to agenda item 5.2. We have a delegation from ATCO. It's going to be a little bit tough to call that last act, perhaps, and that's the luck of the draw. But welcome to Community Fillion, Phil Friesen, and Sean Hines, who have a presentation for council. Yeah.
Testing. There you go. Very good. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you guys for inviting us here today. Always wonderful to be in Jasper. Nobody would ever complain about having to come and present here and be able to spend some time at any time of the year, I would say.
Number. On your chin.
Okay, so I guess we're just gonna start, we'll just jump right into it. We'll start off with this LED streetlight conversion project that we'd like to present to you guys. So right now, the AUC has approved a multiplier in regards to converting municipalities and towns' streetlights to LED. These only qualify for invested rate lights, and the LED conversion multiplier applied in place of a capital contribution. So instead of communities having to pay to convert all their lights, this multiplier rate applies to all communities that convert instead, which is how they recoup their costs. So that current rate is sitting at 8.06. I do know in advance that it is changing again on May 1st. It did just change on April 1st, and now it's changing again May 1st. Once applied, like if you guys agree, obviously the contract will have to be sent to the AUC prior to construction for approval. So this is just how they calculate the multiplier rate based on how many lights are already converted and which communities are on the program. Currently, this is based on the amount of lights that we have, which is 20,379 HPS lights to be converted to LEDs. So the change in the billing from HPS to LED is presented on this slide. So there's per light, this is based off a 100-watt HPS converting to a 38-watt LED is approximately $36.38 per light per year. And that's with the multiplier added on. So that's a savings. So down to Jasper. There's currently 186 lights that are still HPS, give or take a few, because I think I did just get an email from one of our PLTs that he did a few this week. So they wouldn't be in this presentation. So the bottom slide there is the 100-watt HPS bulbs changed to 38. Currently they go at a rate of 503.38 annually. And changing them to LED would be 467 approximately. I do have a more detailed number on a different presentation. So difference for each light is 36.38, and there's 110 100-watt HPS lights to be converted. So that's an annual savings of $4,001.51. And then for the 150 watts, which would be converted to 73 or as close to that wattage as we can get. They currently pay $558.29. Converting to LED would be $505.44, a savings of $52.85, and you have 76 of those lights. So annual savings of $4,016.94, coming to a total annual savings for the community of $8,018.45. This is based on the RRO, so the average retailer rate. So going a little bit further, we did reach out to the community and get what you guys are actually paying. We did actually get your guys' streetlight billing. And so we do have a more accurate number on that in an upcoming slide. So this is additional streetlight inventory that the town has. So already converted to LED, you have 206 lights. There's also non-invested 100-watt decorative non-standard lights, which we have 50. You have 55 of in the community, and 29 150-watt non-standard decorative lighting, and then 3 private lights that don't qualify for the LED conversion project. So this is just kind of some facts regarding the program. Approximately 20,000 streetlights. Invested streetlights have already been converted in communities. The majority must be converted to LED, and after the AUC approval, they'll remove the multiplier rate once all of like eventually they will remove this program and it won't be available for communities anymore. So when a community is wanting to convert to LED, it'll be out of pocket upfront. And then that's questions for that presentation. So I'm not sure if everybody followed that one, or if you want me to jump right into the actual costs. Mike?
Well, thank you for the presentation to this point, and it's a convenient spot, so I will turn to councillors if there are questions here. If not, then we can continue with. I presume you'd still be open for questions on the.
Absolutely.
Maybe, but
There'll be after.
I'll turn it first to councillors if there are questions. I will then ask one question for clearer understanding. When I read the first slide that shows how you get to the map, the multiplier. There's an indication that there's a capital cost divided by all of the lights that you have, not Jasper's lights. But at the end of the day, it seems to me that there was annual savings of about 400,000 based against a capital cost of about $1 million. So in Jasper's case, are we contributing to a capital cost for the conversion? I appreciate that there's an $8,000 savings in the annualized cost, but is there a requirement to pay an upfront capital cost?
There will be no requirement to pay upfront.
Yeah.
So this cost, the cost for all of the conversions will be recouped through the multiplier rate. So based on how many lights have already been converted is how they come up with the percentage of what needs to be recouped. And that's why the LED conversion, that's why the number changes constantly, is because it's based on the amount of lights that are converted. So there is no cost up front. It'll all the costs for everybody's projects recouped throughout the whole of our territory and all of the lights that are converted as a whole. And we're hoping to have everybody on this program before they remove it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
If that clarifies.
If there are not further questions, and again, we can go back if there are, but if you want to then continue with
Sure.
the second part of the presentation, please proceed.
Can we get to the next one? The one.
Is that the agenda package?
It should be, just keep going down. Okay, I guess we'll go first to the next one. This isn't the actual cost numbers. The next presentation is just options for you guys for your decorative streetlight options. So we do have some that are standard, and then the ones that you guys have now are non-standard. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's it.
The ones on Connaught, this is specifically, yeah.
So these are just 4 options that, and the cost, in regards to if you wanted to change the heads, because these are not included to LED in the LED conversion, project that we have. So there's this option style number 1, which would be a 68 watt, which would be $19.43 per unit. And then option 2 is this style, which is a 55 watt LED. And the cost for those is $1293.75. And then option 3 is a 55 watt, and I think you might have something similar to this one here.
Yeah.
And the cost is $1581.25 per unit. And then option 4, 60 watt, with a cost of $2186.43 per unit. So we can discuss those as well, but I did quote or I guess mention how many of those lights that you actually have, 55 and 29. I think there was 89 lights. So this would be the labor for changing the lights. That's something that we could discuss also. I did talk to Sean about that and trying to build a better number in with, if we're going to be doing all of the lights, then maybe we can figure something out with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the more accurate numbers. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to see this, so. I'm sorry, I just need to clear this screen so I can read it. So this is all of the streetlights that the town of Jasper has. It's a very small to see, so if anybody's trying to read it, you might not be able to see it. The type of light is column number one, column A. What type, the description of the light is B. The wattage is, the light count, sorry, is C, and then D is what you currently pay per light for distribution and transmission charges. So that's ATCO's rate. This next column is if they were to be converted to invested, because a lot of communities we present to, they have to convert all their lights from non-invested to invested first, but yours are already converted, so that's why the number's the same there. So the new wattage is the next column, which is what we would convert these lights to. And then the difference between the distribution and transmission charges per light is the next column based on the multiplier rate being added. So I think it does change your by a few cents per light. So the current wattage that you use annually per light is the next column. So 47, I'm just looking at the top row for 100 watt HPS street invested street light is 45 or 45 kilowatt hours. The new wattage would be 18 kilowatt hours. And so your annual distribution and transmission charges total, so the bottom is, and we took this straight off of your guys' bills. So currently, and we got it to as close as we could by averaging out what your guys' rates are, because some of your lights were on different rates. And so your monthly bill is $19,206.31, I believe it says. That's just for distribution and transmission charges for your lights. And then if you were to convert to invested would be, that's why it's the same number for the next column. And so if you converted your lights to LED, your new distribution and monthly distribution charges would be $19,299.53. Sorry, I just can't see. These are such small numbers. And so ultimately, the bottom number is that by converting the lights that you guys have currently on HPS to LED, you'd have a monthly savings of $961.43 with the multiplier rate included in. That's not including decorative, sorry.
Thank you for that, and thank you for going through that graph. That was challenging.
It's very small. I didn't realize it. We tried to print it out at the office, but our printer, of course, failed today, so we couldn't print the slide because I was going to have them as paper in front of us.
Well, thank you again for that. Again, I will turn to councillors. Are there questions regarding this part of the presentation? Councillor Keller-Granby.
Thank you, Mayor. So the decorative poles, is that a one-time fee or are we really responsible for the cost that it has to be changed out?
So because the light is invested, if the light gets hit, then we will repair the light itself, but the heads themselves, because you guys are choosing to go with something that isn't something that ATCO like carries normally, that would be a cost for the municipality.
Councillor Demota.
This might sound like a silly question, but because we're a tourism-based community and we like to pride ourselves on being a little different than other communities. Thank you very much for the presentation. It clarified. I didn't have to ask a lot of questions because they got answered. Are those 4 alternate heads the only ones that are available, or is there a bigger catalog? The reason I'm asking is just because of our kind of twin town down the road mountain property in Banff have these really great decorative lights on their street corners and stuff, and they're able to convert the tops of them to Christmas trees, these mini Christmas trees, and it's quite festive, and it really gives you that kind of resort area feeling here. And then, you know, when I'm looking at these and looking at some of the communities that already participated in the project, what would distinguish our community different than, you know, other rural communities in Jasper? So if everybody's only got the option of the 4, I was wondering if there was an opportunity to explore and maybe work with Tours of Jasper a bit to see if there's some funding out there to you know, at least enhance the commercial core a little bit. And then, I think a broader discussion would be to, if we were going to research what areas of town, people would like their upgrades in their community, in their neighborhoods and stuff like that. So I think there's obviously a broad opportunity here, but I guess my question to you at ATCO, through you, your worship, would be, are there other options in the floor here?
I can answer that if okay. And don't take this the wrong way, but that's why we are where we are today. There's lots of options.
Yeah.
So there are tons of options of lights. So the ones on Connaught today are lights that were chosen by the community, which are unique, not within our standards. So therein lies the problem to a degree, because we have lights that we can no longer replace like for light. So we've been working on these lights on Connaught for some period of time, looking at what is an option that will work, and these are our standards. So you're right, there's lots of options for lights, but similar to what's there now, if we choose something that's outside of that, we can 100% work with you and explore that, but it would include, similar to what we have now, a non-standard lighting agreement, which then results in who owns the light, who pays for fixing the light, who pays for stocking materials to replace the light if it gets hit, if something happens to it, it quits working, that type of thing. So is it possible? For sure. Is there some extra work required to work through that and make that work? Yes, but very doable.
Okay. If I may just finish up, and you must be referring to some of the lights that were to observe dark skies. The overhanging ones that tilt down.
The ones on Connaught currently,
Yeah.
those acorn style lights.
That's
they're
right, yeah.
Non-standard light, and we have a non-standard agreement in place for those.
Right.
But the lights you have to replace those, you have no more of. So we're
Yeah.
kind of at a spot where we gotta retrofit the structure to find something that's currently available, or go with a standard that's here. Or if you want to explore other options, we can definitely do that, but it includes some work.
Well, I understand, and I'm getting into the aesthetics of everything as opposed to the costs, and that's the big part of the project is the conversion to LED. But on those specific lights, I think the decision was made because that would help us to get our status with the as a dark sky preserve destination. So I think it's definitely worthwhile exploring those, and I think it's good to keep them unless there are other viable options to keep us working within that status. And I think not just to stay with the status, but to promote the intention of that. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you for the information.
I think that just another thing to keep in mind is the issue with the lights that you currently have is they're discontinued, so you're no longer able to get parts. So as they fail, like they could end up being mismatched because you can no longer get the parts for those things.
And just to add to that, one of the reasons we've kind of picked these lights is that these are manufacturers well known in the industry, and they've been around for some time, and they're proven lights. So that's why we chose these lights. Like Bill said, we could certainly look at something different, but we'd have to go down that road with how long they've been in the market, can we get parts of them, and make sure we choose the right one. Thank you.
If I could just follow up on Councillor Dubé, are any of the 4 options before us dark sky compliant?
Yes, they are dark sky compliant, yes.
All of them?
All 4, thank you.
Well, that's intriguing. I wouldn't have thought that particularly from option 4.
Forward,
Yeah. Yeah, especially option 4, it's a different one for sure. We thought you may want to pick that one, so that's why we put it there. It's definitely unique if you want to be unique.
Deputy Mayor Millen.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, what we're talking about is about 176 lights that need to be converted, and a capital cost of, if we go with option 4, almost $2,200 per unit, plus installation.
no, 176 lights that will be included, so there will be no capital cost for the ones that are not decorative. Only the decorative option lights have to be,
Oh, okay, so, and that was 55?
110 plus 50, so I just can't see and this is frozen. Stuff this year. Yeah, so there's only, I believe, what did I say there was? Gotta go back to that. 55 plus 29 decorative lighting, and the ones that are included in the conversion would be the 110 100-watt HPS and the 76. So 186 lights will be part of the multiplier program with no upfront capital cost.
Thank you, and for that, then there would be the 55 plus 29, or about 84 non-standard lights.
Yeah, that's correct.
Which would be probably $175,000, $180,000 in capital that would need to be absorbed by the community.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct, yeah. But if, I guess if you're right in it, but if you look at the longevity, if we decide to go with like you have today for that, I mean, the expenses you're paying today, and going forward, it's all at the municipality's cost. So depending on how you choose to go forward, right? It might seem a substantial cost up front, but going forward, if you choose one of the options we provided, all that's included within that price going forward, so.
So if I might, with the conversions under the multiplier, we're gonna, all the lights, we save about $8,000 a year. But upfront, we need to invest about 175. So the payback is over about 20 years, 22 years, that we'll see the conversion would be net zero. It's the way I'm calculating things, or I may have that wrong.
I guess if you look at it in that aspect, sure. But if the maintenance itself today that you're paying, like for the lights you have today, that are non-standard, you're paying for that. So it's not, you can't budget for that. Like for tomorrow, we could come in and say, hey, you owe us, or we have to do some lights, work on some lights, it's gonna cost about $10,000 to fix them. And it's always that unknown. And that part would add on to that as well, right? And what does that look like? Like I said, I have to go back through history, but in the past, ATCO has been we've been very good of helping our neighbors, our communities, and doing a lot of that stuff. I'll call it maybe pro bono or free, however you may want to look at that. But we realize like any other business, we have to start tracking those things. And we want to get on, I guess, a standard, if you will, product and provide you a service we can fix versus having a light on your street that's out for 60 days because we don't have the parts to fix that light for you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a light it's important to you folks, maybe it's for safety reasons, whatever it may look like, right? And so it's lots of things in between that, probably that we're not including in that 22 years you just mentioned. I guess we'll call it 8 or others or unforeseen certain dollars, but we haven't ever measured that. So I know we had councils have asked us in the past about that, and we don't really have a solid number on that. So
Yeah,
just you need to think about all those other additional costs as well. Thank you.
they're just, yeah, like the benefits, I guess, would be having all new assets and less maintenance cost annually, or however you're charged based on when the lights fail or need to be replaced. And then also, they all match, right? So everything would be matching.
Mr. Given, Your Worship, it might be helpful, and I'll look to our presenters just to make sure that I don't mess up your presentation. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's maybe helpful to look at this as two separate issues. One is the conversion of our existing HPS lights to LED, and the payback on that, I think, is
immediate, like our costs overall would go down.
Yeah.
From the
Correct.
day that we did that. That's issue one. So the payback is immediate on that item. And in fact, we'd see a cost reduction if we converted to LED. Separately, if the municipality wanted to convert its decorative lights, which are end of life and hard to get parts for, that's the portion that there would be the $100,000 and some thousand,
Correct.
$200,000 cost.
Separate.
So two completely separate issues. They can move independent. We could choose to only upgrade our decorative lights with the, one of the 4 options that are there or some other option. That would be a straight cost. Or we could choose to convert our existing HPS lights to LED, reducing energy consumption and reducing overall cost, monthly cost. Or we could choose to do both, and use the savings from the LED conversion to pay some of the cost of the decorative conversion, which I think is the math that Councillor Melnick was doing. Say, okay, well, the payback, we could pay off our conversion of our decorative lights by using the savings from the LED, but it would take about 20 years. But the issues aren't tied together. You don't have to do one to do the other. That might be actually a really good strategy, but they're not tied together.
That's correct.
That's correct, yes.
100%.
If I could just add to that, Bill, 2 different opportunities, I'd call it, instead of issues. So one is to reduce your footprint of electricity use by switching to LED, which is good. And the other upgrade of those non-standard lights, we should also include a discussion around what those standards look like and what ATCO's plans are for standard replacement at end of life. We do inspections of those, and when Bill and I had talked last, we had talked about, okay, so if you're replacing a standard and we want to go with something unique to Jasper, that would be the time to do it, so we're not doing it twice. So I would suggest, if we look at the 2 separately, that would be helpful, because the one would be easier to move forward with and the other one would take some more work to look at and review all the options and make the right plan for you and your community. So
I would, but just thank you for the clarity of the 2 different programs, and I did see that the cost savings on the one, which would mean the light standard, the poles, everything is the same. It's a head conversion to an LED, and probably they last longer than the sodium lights, which probably give out every 5 years or whatever, and you're up there changing it anyway. So, okay, and I appreciate the correct, that having the correct numbers now for the 84 non-standard lights, which will be probably a second or different item of discussion. I mean, it makes sense from the presentation to go with the conversion for all kinds of good reasons, but I do appreciate the clarity of the 2 separate programs, which are independent but could be done together.
Yes, correct. 100%.
I wanted to ask, following on that comment by Deputy Mayor Melnick, all sorts of good reasons. One of those good reasons, I think you mentioned, Mr. Friesen, just obliquely, but to what extent would this conversion change our carbon footprint? So we would consume less electricity overall, and there has to be some relationship between that, and most of the energy in provinces is created through fossil fuels, so there would be some net benefit. Is there any way for us or for you to calculate what that benefit might be?
Well, we do have based on kilowatt hours on the presentation here. So for the 100-watt HPS light, currently you're using 47.45 kilowatt hours, and this is monthly. And your new wattage usage per month would be 18 per light, so more than half.
That's where I was.
But total, I would have to do the math to figure that out with all of the lights converted, what the savings would be. I just have it broken down per light per month right now.
If I may, Mayor Ireland, I don't know offhand, but we could take that information back we were looking for. Like I said, paraphrasing, you were just wondering what the less carbon footprint today versus tomorrow if we were to convert this. So if I heard that correctly, I'll take that back to our team, because I don't know, I'll be totally honest. And we'll take that back and bring it forward to you, council. Thank you.
It also would depend on which decorative style lighting you chose, and if you chose to convert those as well, because those are all different wattage lights, so.
But I appreciate all that, and it's my question alone for now, so we'll see whether the council agrees, but I recognize that there is an economic saving to be had here, but there are other environmental savings to be achieved potentially, and I'd like our public to be aware of how we are impacting our own environment, and the dark sky compliant lighting is another aspect of an environmental reason to do this. So I appreciate all of that, but I don't know how much work that involves for you. It's way beyond my math skills. But if there is an interest in council to have that information, I will canvass that now.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a good idea.
Okay, so if
We could get that
if you
fairly
do that for us,
easily,
Sean,
I think.
that would be very
Yeah,
much appreciated.
we'll work on that for you folks, and most, I'm glad you mentioned some of those, Mayor Arnold, because a lot of times we bring this to our presentations, but people just want to see the numbers, right? And they don't want to see smoke and clouds and mirrors, and if us not providing detail, and I understand for this municipality's decision you guys make affects the community, but we'll do our best to get that information for you and get it back to you and for your councils to review as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Demoda.
Thank you. Just to clarify, just because there was some clarification made on the two different aspects. So I think what's being said is that all the Cobra style lights that are currently in, those are the 110 standards. Wherever those are, that's where we have to convert to the standard style LED, or are there opportunities to change them completely in different areas? Because if I'm just saying that if there are some people in their neighborhoods that don't like the look of the big ones, is there an opportunity, or is there a standard that needs to be set for certain roadways and things like that? If that's why we have to stay to the 110 being the same. Does that make sense?
I understand the question, and to upgrade the standard and the light from an existing standard to a decorative would require a study to ensure that what we want to replace it with meets municipal lighting requirements from an engineering standpoint. So we would have to look at that depending on the height of the davit, the spacing of the davits, the offset across the street. You know, if you picked a short one with less light, it may not provide the safety footprint required for municipal lighting. So we'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
But it's possible to look at that and see what your options may be.
Yeah, my goal wasn't to create more work for anybody today, like on your side or even for administration, but there have been neighborhoods in our community that have had sidewalk improvements, and you know, we have a capital program coming up, and those are things to think about, right? Because they're, you know, when some streets get redone, they get new lights, and some of them, to others, might perceive to be a little bit nicer than the standard. I still call them Cobras. I don't know if that's the term for it.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, it's just something to explore down the road, because I'm not sure, you know, if those things have all been considered, you know, with our future planning of our community. And I guess the other thing is the luminescence aspect of what's out there, because there are some that are super bright, like some that are like obnoxiously bright, and then there's some that have a nice kind of warm glow to them. So is that going to be a continual mix, or are they, when we go to the LED, they're all going to be the same?
Well, they'll be different. There's some that are different wattages, but they should all generally be the same. And the HPS tend to illuminate more of a wider area, where the LED are more of a narrowed focus down. So I guess less light pollution.
I see no more hands, so signifying no more questions. But thank you all very much for the presentation. We can certainly have a motion to receive the presentation for information. Mr. Gibbon, might I ask now whether there would be an intent from the administration to bring forward at some future point a recommendation with respect to the potential for conversion and replacement of the decorative lights in particular?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think in terms of responding to the presentation, the first step would be the motion to receive for information, and maybe a second step if council is interested, to direct administration bring back a report to a future committee of the whole meeting, providing a recommendation on, and then I pause there because you could fill in the blank on conversion to LED streetlights and or conversion of decorative lights to a different standard. And council may choose to tell the administration to do only one of those analysis, or you might want us to do both of them. But direct administration bring back a report on and bring that to a future committee of the whole meeting. I think would probably be the direction you'd be looking for, because at this time, unless council gives direction, we're not, it's not clear whether your desire is to consider just the LED conversion but leave the decorative lights, address the decorative lights but leave the LED conversion, or to consider both. And so by all means, you can help develop our scope of work for that report back by identifying it in the motion.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. I see 3 councillors, 4 with pens in hand.
Right.
Just taking notes.
Councillor Moore?
Well, I was first doing the math, seeing how many months we had left on this council, start the projects and getting things going, because it's like, it looks like 18 for now, and we're probably gonna be needing to wrap up things after like the 14th month, so I'm just trying to be cognizant of that and how many things that we have in the hopper and getting administration for us to do. So this is important because we're at a point where things are going to get replaced, and if they're here doing the work and setting up the program, for me, I think we need to take a little bit of a bit more of an extensive look. So maybe another committee of the whole to discuss this. I'm not sure exactly what to prescribe to administration to go forward. But usually in the past, not intending to use this as a stall tactic, once in a while the mayor starts writing a motion. So anyway, those are just my thoughts, because I think, even, when I was considering the neighborhood enhancement for other areas in the town, like, I think we just should be a little bit thought forward on that. If some of our capital projects are going to go through in the next 2 or 3 years, if we stay ahead of that, I'm not sure if we can change the lights beforehand, but at least put those into consideration for making the decision in the next little while.
And I guess just one other thing to keep in mind is the LED multiplier program was supposed to come to an end at the end of 2023, but the AUC decided to extend that. At any time, they could tell us that it is over, and then at that time, as if you wanted to change all your lights, that we wouldn't be able to proceed with this program. It would be all upfront costs, unless they fail as they.
Thank you for that. Councillor Paulette?
Well, I'm wondering, I tried to do a quick search here, but if there's an opportunity for any community development grants that are available from the province. I know we have CFEP that we occasionally apply to, and whether there's any federal ones. I'm not sure if you've worked with other communities that had access to that, but I think that there's an opportunity maybe to work with Theresa and Jasper and Travel Alberta, at least for the visitor facing aspect of light standards in the community. Another item to think about when we're making these decisions.
Is there a councillor with a motion?
Merit, that council received the presentation today for ATCO for information and direct administration to come back to a committee of the whole with a recommendation to proceed with changing our lights to LED and to bring back some more information on our infrastructure of lighting and changing out the poles as we go forward.
Your worship, just in the motion, Councillor Keller, you mentioned the polls. That's a third issue. And so I think that the main issues that were raised in the presentation today were the decorative fixtures. Maybe that would be the term, because the polls is a whole other separate issue.
Change the term poles to decorative fixtures.
Thank you, Councillor Keller-Grampy, for that motion. So for clarity, 3 parts, to receive the presentation for information, to direct administration to return to a future committee of the whole with recommendations regarding conversion to LED, and also directing administration to return to the committee of the whole with recommendations regarding replacement of the decorative elements or decorative features. Everybody understands the motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Nolan.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question for clarification with the multiplier. The decorative replacement, is that also covered under the multiplier? That's totally separate. So the multiplier could expire at the end of this year, and it makes sense to do the first portion of the 110 lights, or variety of lights, to go to LED. And a decorative program, just a question, if we were to do that over a 2-year period, is that something that would be possible or probably not preferable? In other words, by doing it over a 2-year period, we're potentially spreading costs over 2 budget years.
I'm sure you could do that, but usually when you add mob and demob to get the crews up here, that would be additional cost. That's all I would have to consider in the project itself. And to be honest, the way the material is going, like we might quote your light today at 2,200. The same light next year could be, I won't say double, but I've seen it going up exponentially, just so you know. The cost of material steady rising, so.
Thank you for that, and that perhaps add some urgency to the situation to plan for the future, because these will eventually have to be replaced.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Melnick. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I also wonder, in regards to the 110 that are part of this multiplier program, do we need to put some urgency on that? You're saying, like, it's not going to cost anything and we can just do it.
Yeah, no, there's no cost up front, like I said, but the program has been out for quite some time. I think we're going on our 6th year now. And so it was supposed to expire at the end of 2023, like I said. They have extended it, but they haven't said how long they're extending the program for. So like I said, at any time, the AUC could say, we're ending this program at the end of 2024, and then whatever municipalities or towns are left, whether we can get them in or not, materials, that type of thing. So.
Yeah, if I could just add that, Councillor Hall, I know, and like Tanya said, it's been 6 years, so I just want to make sure again, with no smoke and mirrors here, is that, you know, they keep saying it could end, and it didn't end, and it may stay on for another 5 years. We don't know that, right? They don't let us know that. But you know, I guess it's, one councillor said, you got to know when to get on the train, when to get off the train. So I guess it comes down to, as council, you folks decide to make the decision. But I can tell you, the majority of our customers or majority of the communities that we represent at ATCO or in the communities have chosen the same option we provided to you today. So, and maybe that could be something to reach out to as well, other councils, if you feel you'd like to have some more information and what that looks like for your folks. So, I'm not sure how many attending we have on board, but we had quite a few. We did, for example, Slave Lake just signed last spring. We had a few other in Grand Prairie the year before. So some large communities have done the same and the same program.
In our region, Slave Lake and Jasper are the only communities that I have left.
That's correct. Thank you.
Councillor DeVoe.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. The question I have isn't going to affect the motion but I can ask for clarity after.
We do have a motion, and as typical, I've allowed some latitude, a great deal of latitude in drawing our presenters into debate. But they haven't actually been debating the motion. They've just been adding additional information. So if you have comments about the motion that is before us, that is fine. Otherwise, if you have questions for later, that would be fine. Councillor Hall, did you wish to speak to the motion?
I do wish to speak to the motion. I just wonder if we need to add a timeline to it or some, like I said, some urgency on that conversion that won't cost us anything.
Your worship, I'll take that as a question for administration. I think from an administrative perspective, certainly the team from ATCO has presented a significant amount of information. So I think a lot of the details are already worked up. Bring it back to council with an RFD should be something we could do within a month's time. So I don't see it being a long time, really, given the work that ATCO's done and brought to the table.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. I know it's not quite proper either, but I think we can all agree that implicitly the motion means as soon as possible. But we could add that if we want. But we appreciate that administration has capacity issues as well, but it is, as we've heard, somewhat urgent, and if the program disappears, we will feel badly that we missed that opportunity. So we're appreciative of that. Any other debate on the motion? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. So again, thank you to our presenters, all from ATCO. And before you leave today, apparently our microphones are not working really well. Can you fix them?
Not really in our wheelhouse, fixing microphones. I did have just a brief little bit of information, Mayor Ireland, if I could.
Yes.
So just wanted to share a little bit of work we've been doing in the area and some preparation for the upcoming fire season, which is already upon us, it seems. So we've been doing a lot of work internally to enhance our operational preventative measures. We have a team focused on this specifically. We've shared what we've done here in the past as far as turning automatic reclosing devices off in high risk periods to avoid the line closing back in when there's an intermittent fault, which reduces the risk of feeding additional fault current into that fault, which then typically would possibly cause a fire start. So we're working on that, and we're poised, I'd call it, to initiate that as that fire risk, that fire hazard increases to a level where we're concerned. We have patrolled our cross-country sections of line and looked for any imminent or immediate hazards to address. That's done. So as of those patrols, we have looked after a few things that were out there, and and from previous years, like last year, we had the bear incident. So those poles have gotten pardon me, bear guards installed, so we shouldn't have a repeat of the same. So a bunch of work that's ongoing, currently, you see some work, happening across, the Moberly Bridge out towards Sixth Bridge. You'll see some work, south of Astoria from the Warden's Cabin, going south to the new Caribou facility. So significant, improvements to the system underway to install underground, which will allow us to de-energize the overhead and remove that, fire risk. This week, the crew is working and should have that overhead line cut over from Astoria up to the Warden's Cabin, to the underground, so then that overhead will be de-energized. In previous years, we've done the work on CN West at Hendricks tree wire to mitigate those risks there. Currently, that work you see between the Moberly Bridge and Sixth Bridge wasn't supposed to happen until next season. They've got in there early, and we're hoping that we might even be able to energize that underground and de-energize that overhead, and then future work as well, looking at from town up to Pyramid Lake, placing that line underground, removing that overhead. So a fair bit of work going on, which you probably have been driving around and all, you've seen that. So some good things happening to mitigate some of those risks and ultimately reduce some of the eyesore, which hopefully will add to the uniqueness of power lines not being visible. So, and I think we wanted to just have Sean give a brief introduction as he's new here, replacing Amanda, if we'd be allowed.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I took Amanda's job there last year, and big shoes to fill, obviously. Just a bit about me, I've been with the ATCO Electric now for 19 years, came up through the system like most people, and now, of course, senior manager of Central West, which encompasses, I'm living and reside in Slave Lake for 19 years. I came here for 6 months, I think, and 19 years later, I'm still in this beautiful country of Alberta, so fortunate. So that being said, I am looking forward to meeting all you folks. Last year, my plan was to come out and see a lot of you folks, but unfortunately, the wildfires consumed a lot of our times. And as it did last year, it affected our district quite majorly. We had over 7,850 poles last year we had to replace. So quite a bit of work. Hoping the work that we're doing, like Bill said, the strategy we're doing across our organization, we're doing quite a bit of it. We've even developed some different departments within our company that are just looking at that wildfire mitigation and strategy, and where can we put lines underground that's feasible, and what kind of equipment we can support, whether it's grid modification, whether it's AMI metering, which we're installing in your community now, just newer technologies. So hopefully someday you'll have an app on your phone, you'll help you see what kind of power you're consuming, what your bill is at real time. So let's, and what that looks like. So, because we all know, like you said, when we look at our bills in monthly, I pay the same one. So I always look at ways to get that down as much as we all do. So anyway, just looking forward to seeing all you folks, and thank you for letting us have the opportunity to speak to you folks today. And by all means, anytime any council member or you, Mayor Allen, or Deputy Mayor Milnick, needs anything from ATCO in the community, like we're proud supporters of the community, and especially Jasper, and I'm sure we will be for a long time to come. So thank you for this opportunity, much appreciated.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Sean, and welcome. I will say, it'll be interesting. I hope that it doesn't occur, but Amanda, your predecessor, was certainly engaged here in the community with the Chettaman wildfire, and established a really strong relationship. Not the best way to necessarily establish relationships, but she was astounding, and I'm sure you'll do the same. I will mention that recently she reached out requesting a copy of the climate resilience report that was provided to council in the last month or so. And I was really encouraged that she saw the value in looking at that report. And so if you haven't seen that yet, it's on our website under the document section. So it's something that just draw your attention to. It impacts all of us. And that takes me back to Bill, and thank you for the work that you've just described that ATCO is doing to help further protect our community. It's really significant work. And we thank you for your engagement in that. And again, thank you for today's presentation. We certainly heard the benefits that you've ascribed to the conversion to LED, and we'll have to take a look at the executive features, but we will get that done as soon as possible. We told Mr. Jasper, and we will let you know. In the meantime, you guys make sure that opportunity stays open for us. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, that takes us to the new addition to the agenda, item 5.3. We've quite happily agreed to add a delegation, so come forward. Ladies. Theresa, Matricia, and Paulette. Welcome. You can figure out how to keep those microphones working. Welcome, and you can
Keep your voice.
pick your order and it's yours.
All right, I apologize, I'm gonna have to rush through this a little bit, because I have a meeting at 8 that I have to run to in 15 minutes, but oh, there we go, it's on. Okay, sorry, I just was saying, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to rush through a little bit. So I have to be somewhere else at 3 o'clock, but thank you for having us here today, and I'd like to preface this invitation I'm about to give with the acknowledgement of appearing before the council without the 2-week notice, as seen on the agenda, and we're here with some time sensitivity, as there are not enough Tuesdays to accomplish what we had wished to have seen by council before May 5th, the day of acknowledging missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. I would like to thank council for the dedication to advancing truth and reconciliation. We thank you for setting reconciliation as a priority within your strategic planning, and for dedicating municipal administrative support to building Indigenous relations in the community. We are here on behalf of a small committee, a few others, to organize a community event and education campaign in acknowledgement of the ongoing crisis, which was formally classified as a genocide in the 2019 final report of the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls in Canada. We would like to formally invite Mayor Ireland and the council to be part of the event to acknowledge missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The event will be on Sunday, May 5th. We'll have more details on the event as our committee continues to meet. And we invite council to show support to allow us to visibly hang red dresses down Patricia Street the day of the event as part of the Red Dress Project. It would be another small step forward on the path of reconciliation. If council is decided, it would recognize the ongoing crisis that affects women within our own community by proclaiming May 5th as the day for awareness of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Thank you, Theresa. Well before 3 o'clock, so well done. Appreciate it. But thank you for bringing this to our attention. I do appreciate that. It is time sensitive, and there's not enough Tuesdays, sometimes in a month. I just have a question of administration with respect to hanging red dresses. Would there be an issue? Is there any direction required of council to permit that? I can't visualize exactly where they're going to hang, but I'm just not sure that if we need to do something, we should get on it. I'm not sure what it is that council would need to do.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, certainly, as far as the operational needs of where to hang and what we could certainly administration could work with the proponents here. If council was supportive of the idea of hanging red dresses on municipal infrastructure, we could definitely make it safe and easy if council was supportive of the idea.
I could give a little bit more context around what that might look like, what we envisioned as well, just to give you a clear idea. We were thinking as it's an educational tool as well, for passerby on the sidewalk. We were thinking about just the cages around the tree so that it would be at eye level, and attaching some informational tags and QR codes and for more resources along Patricia Street. So that helps you visualize what it might look like.
Well, thank you for that. That sounds like municipal infrastructure. So. With respect to the possibility of the proclamation, do you have a draft?
I do, yes.
So just to spread the wealth, the proclamation of a meeting of suggested wording could be like this. So proclamation, Day for Awareness of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, MMIWG, May 5th. Whereas Canadian history has contributed to the ongoing violence of Indigenous women and girls in Canada. As a result, violence against Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQIA+ people is disproportionately high. And whereas we honor the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women by raising awareness on this ongoing national tragedy, and we hold in our thoughts the families and communities who live with the grief of losing loved ones. Whereas information and education about MMIWG in Canada raises awareness and supports the Municipality of Jasper to continue along the path of reconciliation. Therefore, in honor of the past, present, and future Indigenous women and girls in Canada, I, Mayor Richard Ireland, hereby proclaim May 5th as a day for awareness of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Jasper, Alberta, Canada.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. You can presumably email that to us.
Yeah.
If you haven't done that already. It has occurred to me, been brought to my attention that council recently passed a public statements policy. This would be a public statement. And this is, I think, our first opportunity to apply that new policy. And are there administrative procedures that would come into play? And again, from the perspective of administration, and council give direction now?
Your worship, certainly there are administrative procedures. They generally have to do with the presentation of the request to council. And I think that's why the speakers identified that this is, the number of Tuesdays in the month is causing a bit of a challenge. So outside of that administrative procedure, I think really what's required is a motion of council to approve or endorse the public statement. I think so a motion at council here today could do that. And if council's comfortable, the proclamation, that could be done up. The mayor could make that at another time. I know the practice is to make those proclamations at a regular council meeting. But just given how the calendars work now, the council wanted to approve the installation of recognition on the municipal streetscape and authorize the mayor to make a proclamation in recognition of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. That would probably suit the council policy that says that there just needs to be a motion at council to activate these kind of things, these kind of requests. I think the delivery of a proclamation could be done at an event that was organized or wherever else the mayor received it.
Thank you for that. I haven't invited questions yet, but are there questions, the presenters? Councillor Bauer?
I was just, I was impressed, I should say, instead of surprised, that the first Red Dress Day was actually on May 5th in 2010 in Winnipeg. I was just doing a little bit of research on there, and I thank you for giving some background on that. So I find it very interesting, and I definitely want to support this for sure.
Yeah, Enrico, in response to that as well, I think we have put together quite a list of resources. And Jenna McGrath, in her current role with the town, we're planning on putting a lead up, 20-day lead up of information on the website or on the Facebook page with actionable items where people can go to movies, podcasts, resources, links, things that they can do themselves to support MMIW, and just as a general education component. That's, if that's helpful to council to know that.
Thank you for that, Matricia. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion if there's nothing else from council. I move that council endorse the public statement for the Day for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls provided by the committee. And that council approve the installation of a red dress display on municipal property on Patricia Street in the downtown core. That was my first motion. Endorse the public statement. And endorse the proclamation. I'll change that. Sorry, my first motion. Endorse the proclamation for the Day for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. I'll add one more part. I'd like to receive the presentation for information.
Right, the motion that I transcribed as now being before council from Councillor Hall is that council receive the presentation from the delegation as information, that council endorse the mayor to issue a proclamation proclaiming May 5th, 2024 to be a day for recognition of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Jasper, and that council approved the installation of a red dress display within the downtown portion of Patricia Street on May 5th, 2024. Close enough to the motion? Thank you for that. Is there any debate on the motion? We've already expressed favorable disposition toward it, and I just want to thank you again for getting it to our attention, and I appreciate that. We have to have a process, and sometimes it is inconvenient, but we're also able to be adaptable in small amount. Except that with timing challenges, these things happen, but happy to receive you today. So glad that you came and brought this to our attention.
Thank you very much.
There is no debate about the motion. I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. So it shall be done. I will work on the proclamation. The one thing I might change, typically, it is I approving on behalf of council, because I want public to recognize that the mayor alone doesn't do these things. We are a council, and we are all endorsing the initiative. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have, I think, included matters that affect the public generally and presenters. So it is now 3 o'clock. We would yet have a break. Won't be a particularly long agenda after this, subject to the informal portion perhaps. But I think this would be an appropriate time for a brief recess. So let us say that 10 minutes will be sufficient and we will reconvene at 3:10. Until then, we are in recess. Thank you. It is 3:10. I will call us back into session. We have lost the gallery crowd through the recess. There may still be some watching us on our Zoom platform. In any event, council is here with administration. We will continue with new business, agenda item 6.1. Request from community development. Director Reed, do you wish to speak to this?
Maybe. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Certainly, further to the presentation that was made at committee, but National Volunteer Week is upon us very quickly or is now rather. And so having council proclaim that is just a very visible support to the volunteers in our community, which, as Your Worship already referenced today, are crucial to the kind of beautiful community that we do live in. So I'm certainly, if there are any questions, but I don't have anything more to add.
Thank you for that, Director Reed. Is there anything from councillors, or is there a councillor prepared to make two motions recommended? Councillor Hall.
I would make those motions that council receive the correspondence information and that council proclaim April 14th to 20th, 2024 as National Volunteer Week in Jasper.
Thank you for that. Any debate? Speaking in favor? All right, I will call the question then. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We do have a proclamation. It's not in front of me, but I will sign that proclamation on behalf of council proclaiming April 14th to 20th, 2024 as National Volunteer Week in Jasper. And again, on behalf of all of council, thank all of our many volunteers throughout the community who do exceptional work all year long. Agenda item 6.2, Municipality of Jasper Library Board Financial Reviewer. This comes to us from a recommendation from Committee of the Whole a week ago. In the absence of any other questions, I understand it was canvassed last week, so if there is a councillor prepared to make a motion, would be appropriate. Councillor Hall.
I will happily make this motion because as soon as it's approved, Ms. Tom can pass off the stuff to Andrea Terrell and we can get this done before the deadline. So I will move that council approve Andrea Terrell and her qualifications as per the Libraries Act to act as financial reviewer for the Municipality of Jasper Library Board.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Hall. Is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Takes us to agenda item 6.3, Community and Economic Development Fund applications. Again, a recommendation coming forward from Committee of the Whole. So subject to any additional questions, I would look for a motion. Councillor Demota.
Yeah, no one has any further questions. I can move that one forward. Okay. I move that council approve the following Community and Economic Development Fund allocations to Jeffrey Wilson in the amount of $1,667, to Danny Frechette in the same amount of $1,667, and the Jasper Physiotherapy and Massage for $1,667.
Thank you for that motion. Is there any debate? I call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. At my request, we added agenda item 6.4 to the agenda. This will be brief. It relates to our current traffic safety bylaw and a particular provision within that. It was brought to my attention. Well, it has been brought to my attention a few times, most recently by our chief bylaw officer, Mr. Jones. Yesterday, there is an ongoing issue and a resident who is the subject of that issue also came to see me today about the matter, and it relates to dated terminology that is not current with today's technological reality. And in particular, we have a specific provision in our bylaw. It's section 16.16, which prohibits skateboards, rollerblades, and scooters in the central business district. When that bylaw was initially passed, I was there, and I know that we were thinking about little kids' scooters and ones that just kind of push with a foot, and we thought it was a dangerous idea to have skateboards, rollerblades, and scooters on the streets in the downtown. But that provision now also impacts e-scooters, and there are many e-scooters in the community, and this one particular resident, and that we need to respond to a single complaint that that scooter is that person's mode of transportation, and they're concerned that they can't take it downtown and perhaps to the grocery store, for example. But the bylaw officer is constrained by the wording of the bylaw, and it says no scooters. So I bring this to the attention of the council. I'm only going to suggest that we refer the matter to committee of the whole and decide how we might want to address the issue if it is an issue that we should address ourselves to a lot. But I told both Mr. Jones and the particular resident that I would bring it forward to the attention of council, not to deal with today, but potentially at least to refer it to committee of the whole for further discussion. And I don't think we need a motion, but with consent of council, I would suggest that this just carry forward to the next committee of the whole. And we seem to have that consent, so thank you. That is that issue resolved. Agenda item 7, notices of motion. There are none. Councillor reports is next. Councillors have reports to deliver. I will start at the end there with Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Marilyn. Last Friday, I attended the Evergreen's first recognition awards of our employees from the 5 regions that are involved. I didn't realize myself that we were 65 years in association for Evergreens, and this was the work of the board that we started this new event that every year we will recognize our employees, and we had 3 from Alpine Summit, 15 years, 10 years and 5 years, so it was a great evening. And this week I'll be attending our fundraising. Our fundraising is going good. We have raised a quarter of our funds, so now we're have ordered the generator, and we will be having some events coming up. On June 1, we'll be having a barbecue in the parking lot of Alpine Summit, doing burgers for lunch and some music, and so that will be one of our first fundraisers.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick.
Thank you. I just would like to report that I attended the Jasper Yellowhead Historical Society annual meeting last week, and at that meeting, the society named its new president, and that is Steve Pavlov, taking the place of Oren Waxer as the president of the board.
Thank you for that, Councillor Melnick. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Last Tuesday, I attended a library board meeting. It was a little bit of shuffling of staff upstairs, but it's all working out really well. There's a few more weeks left in this month to partake in what's happening, including a Pride story time on Friday, 10:45 down here.
Thank you. Councillor Dewar.
Yeah, just, I'll leave you to the report of the flag raising and other events because I attended too, so. I was quite pleased to be there and honored that there was a group in town or the school board that was allowed change up and letting Jasper Pride step in. I thought it was a great accommodation. I have a Community Futures meeting coming up on Thursday in Hinton, so looking forward to that as well. And I did have a question, and it's just because of Councillor Keller and recent report. That we used to have more engagement with the seniors and the seniors lodge for barbecues and stuff in the summertime, and sometimes having a lunch there. And I think that I'd like to get back to that because it's a segment of the community that I'd like to interact more with and see more and have those opportunities. And I think as a group, it's always been well received when council comes and does an engagement.
Every Friday from 3 to 4, we have happy hour. All councillor welcome. And I will apprise you of any events that are coming up, especially during senior week. And hopefully we can all attend, or maybe we can put on a special event for our seniors that week as council to host.
Thank you for that. I will report that on April 8th, so Monday of last week, I was invited in to sit in the gallery of the Legislative Assembly while the MLA for Banff Kananaskis presented a motion, a non-binding motion, but encouraging the Assembly to recognize the importance of the mountain tourism-based communities and work toward funding a funding model for those communities on the basis that their resident populations have to incur extraordinary expenses to serve a visitor population. It was a very interesting debate. But the vote went strictly along party lines, and the motion was defeated. But I would encourage each of you to find a recording similar to us. There is a legislative television, and just like ours, our proceedings can be viewed later on YouTube. There is that opportunity, and the remarks, the motion was made at about 5 p.m. on Monday, April 8th, and the debate proceeded for almost an hour. And I would just encourage you to take a view of those proceedings and to listen to the arguments on both sides of the aisle. So in one respect, unfortunate that from our perspective, that the motion wasn't passed, but certainly an opportunity to raise the profile and both on council and throughout the community would be really worthwhile for people to hear the arguments that were made. From there, I was invited the following day to attend what was billed as a fireside chat with Parks Canada President and CEO Ron Holman. That was sponsored by AMPI in Banff, and I traveled down to Banff to attend that, and of course missed the committee of the whole here last week because of that. Mr. Holman, the president and CEO, was joined by two of his vice presidents, including Andrew Campbell, who has been instrumental here with Mr. Given negotiating our current discussions. So they were there. There was a presentation by Mr. Holman, followed by questions posed by Stavros Carlos, who's acting as a moderator, and the president, two vice presidents fielded a number of questions. Of interest to our community, in particular, it came to my attention, perhaps others knew this already, but Banff now has a rapid fire response equipment cache, which is available for the mountain parks use. So based on last year's wildfire experience, they have coordinated sprinklers and other units able to be dispersed relatively quickly. Well, they call it rapid fire response, so we hope that it would be rapid, but it's available in the national parks and in the mountain national parks in particular. So that was good news. There was also quite a lot of emphasis on transportation issues, and can't say when exactly, 2 years ago, Mr. Hallman appointed an expert panel to view transportation issues in the borough. That panel has presented, and there have been comments as of the last spring from parks responding to the report, but it is available, and it is just an interesting read because it deals with the question of transportation generally, and as Mr. Hallman acknowledged, the challenge is not attracting visitors to our national parks. The challenge is moving them around, and moving people will be a significant challenge for parks and parks municipalities in the coming years. So it ties in quite heavily with our own experience with transit in the community and Parks Canada's engagement in our transit options here. So I can get you a copy of that particular report if you're interested. I got it from the town council, but it's a public report, but it's a long document that's quite interesting. Also of interest, there was a specific question about guiding, and you will recall several months ago we had a delegation before us. And the question was, are you planning changes? The very short answer was no. Then there was a long explanation about no, but again, for the benefit of the local group that was interested in that. The response from Vice President Andrew Campbell was that no changes are forthcoming, but there still seems to be concern. And the final issue was zebra mussels, which is an invasive species and has prompted Parks Canada to close boating on some lakes already, and maybe more. And it is a really serious concern. Apparently, a single zebra mussel in one single season can produce 1 million mushrooms. So if they get into the water system, it will be devastating. And apparently, the filtration system in these mussels could, in fact, take the blue out of our mountain lakes. So it's a real concern. I'm not sure that I've heard it as a concern yet in Jasper National Park, but certainly a big concern down. On April 11th, Mr. Gibbon and I attended a session at the invitation of the Jasper Hotel Association to discuss communications primarily related to emergency situations, so wildfire in particular. I thought that went particularly well. We were joined by Landon Shepherd on behalf of Parks Canada. And I thought some understanding certainly were developed, and it appears that the group, and perhaps in combination with outlying commercial accommodations, which no longer have their own association, they will look at a single point contact so that they will be better positioned to receive information that we might be disseminating in an emergency situation. So a useful discussion, I thought, on that afternoon. As Councillor Demoda indicated, Councillor Demota, Deputy Mayor Melnick and myself attended the progressive flag raising at the public high school on Friday, April 12th. There was a good crowd there. That 10-day long event is now underway, the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival in its 15th year. Finally, I will report, not quite finally, and ultimately, I was invited Sunday to an event at Wicked Cup that was related to Ukrainian refugees. And I had an opportunity at that, to my surprise, to be asked to speak. And was able to credit Nancy Addison for her great efforts. But this particular issue had a Edmonton connection, and based on the response in Edmonton to refugees from the war, a lady and her daughter opened the Ukrainian kitchen to give Ukrainian refugees an opportunity to engage in an important cultural attribute, which is making food. And they've developed this now where they make this really wonderful food, and they're looking for ways to make it available to other communities. So you could proudly serve Donya products. And so they test drove those at Wicked Cup, and it was an excellent event. And then now it is finally last evening I attended the monthly meeting of the Jasper Community Team Society. I'm happy to report that all of the funds that were in issue with respect to the crisis team have been resolved. Checks were all being signed and approved at the board level. So that issue seems, I think, to be resolved, and the Jasper Community Team Society is holding its annual general meeting tomorrow at Jasper Park Lodge, and on Saturday we'll be doing the coat check at the Pride event at the lodge, just to raise some funds. And I think we got confirmed last night that coldest night of the year raised 17,000 and some dollars locally, half of which will go to the Community Team Society and half to the and that is my report. Upcoming events, as I said, we are underway with the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival. Transit open house tomorrow at Jasper Park Lodge. NETMA Wednesday evening at Papa George's. Another transit open house at the Activity Center on 18th from 11 till 1 and 4 till 8. Are those times still correct? Fire smart information for residents on April 27th in the evening, right here in this room. Another wildfire preparation information session on April 24th. Community-wide Fire Smart Day on April 27th. And then at the end of the month on Tuesday, we will have our intergovernmental meeting with Parks Canada and emergency preparedness open house on May 7th at the Emergency Services Building. Are there any other upcoming events of which council should be aware of? Deputy Mayor Melman.
Just to mention a Rotary fundraising event on Sunday, April 28th at Sukasa Restaurant. It's called Fiesta Sukasa, and tickets are available at Takara Lodge, and the proceeds from that go to the local Rotary Club, who uses the proceeds to support things such as the local food bank and work with our seniors, our library, and so on in the community.
Thank you for that. Councillor DeMotta.
Out of curiosity, not to throw a curveball at administration, just because we're, upcoming events, With the spring thaw, everything happening, I was just wondering how close we were to engaging some type of groundbreaking of the skateboard, the designated skateboard park area. Are we getting closer to that?
You're watching through the Councillor Demota. Thank you for the question. It is going to happen this year. You may note that I believe there is I believe the presentation needs to be made to PDAC, and until that happens, we do not have the groundbreaking permission. I don't have all the details on that. Director Greathead knows more about it, but we can certainly get to the bottom of it and give council the full information. But we're ready to go as soon as we have that permit.
And PDAC meets on the third Thursday of the month. Is that what it goes? That's what's a month, okay.
All right, thank you all for those additions to upcoming events. Added agenda item, inserted in the agenda item, which is in camera, 2 items, Mr. Given, Local Relations, and Councillor Demota. Is it safe to assume that neither of these will lead to further action by council today? It is, yes. All right, I will shortly call then for a motion to move in camera, and after which we will do so. But before we do, I will just let any public who are still watching know that when we do come out our in-camera session, revert to open session, it will simply be for opportunity. There will be no further business discussed at this meeting. So I thank you for your attendance virtually today and allow you to release yourself to the rest of the day. And I will keep council here as we discuss those other 2 items in camera. Might I have a motion, please, to move in camera at 3:37 p.m. Thank you, Councillor Keller-Harampe. All those in favor? That is carried, and we shall move in camera.